Hello everyone, and thank you for clicking on another one of my videos. I am Screen Scene Guru, and today we'll be doing a big comic book review. So starting off with, let's go into a bit of Doom Patrol. Very interesting comic, guys. We've got issue number 4, and this is from, let's see, does it have a year on it? 2004. So issue number 4 from 2004. Really awesome cover, guys. We got some underwater action. Starting off, we get the moon. Very exciting stuff. Crashing into the planet. Check that out, guys. Be sure to subscribe for comic book news. If you haven't already seen Screen Guru, check that out. Nice. So going into the story, we see the Doom Patrol already diving on this installation. Very interesting stuff. Encountering creatures of the deep. Having to fight them off, very much like underwater. Check that out. Awesome stuff. You see a bit of infighting with the group. I haven't checked out the Doom Patrol TV series, but if you guys recommend, I might do reviews of that. This is the first time picking up the comic, and I like it very much. That's pretty cool. They had to send in Mr. Skeleton. That's what I'm calling him basically right now, for the bones. You see scientists down there, still alive, ones they have to get out. Very interesting. Then we see Hank having to ball up his hand. Then the big mama comes out. And I like this chick down here because she has the power to grow, shrink and grow. That's pretty cool. Awesome stuff here. So yeah, that was this comic right here, Doom Patrol, issue number 4 from 2004. So that's pretty fun, guys. Let's see. Alright, going into our next comic, guys, we've got Superman, issue number 40. This is The Four-Armed Terror Lashes Out. Let's see, do we have a year from this? Yeah, let's see, 1989. So very interesting stuff here, guys. Superman, 1989, which is very fascinating. We see, starting off, we've got scientists looking for kryptonite for Lex Luthor, being berated by savage cave dwellers. So that's very interesting to see. We've got rogue Cadmus scientists working on the crazy hatchling beast. So that's very interesting. Going on right here, you see the four-armed creature being hatched, and they do plan on sending it to their former home, Metropolis, of course, on the Daily Planet. This is a very interesting comic because we get to see this is after Clark Kent has already left the Daily Planet. We see the Perry White's son is upset for getting kicked out of the house. And also we get Jimmy Olsen is obsessed with finding his parents in this issue. That's very interesting. See Clark in his new fancy job. And going on, we get to see people freaking out because of the creature. Superman having to reschedule his meetings to, of course, go out and fight crime. They do mention this creature is created with kryptonite, using a subtle form of kryptonite that makes him weaker when he fights it. So very interesting stuff there. Get to see the crash and much of the people living in Metropolis dealing with the daily life, the fighting of Superman, people dealing with scandals, controversies, because this guy's got recently out of the hospital after his dad took over his business. And then, of course, it jumps back to the fight. Then we get to see right in here lady drawing Superman saying, oh, it's more of a Superboy. And Superman realizing there's something up with this creature. Then we go jump back to the scientists. And they start to explain how Jimmy Olsen's dad was a clone. How Jimmy also is part of this program. So that was very interesting. We get to see Jimmy activates his suppressed clone memories. And we get to see Jimmy's mom captured. So that was a little bit darker for DC. Then, of course, the creature does try to take Jimmy, like on the cover. But Superman prevents this. And then Jimmy, of course, is left with Superman in his arms. He then goes to drop him off at the hospital where he has this encounter with the doctor, which I thought was very fascinating, this last part of the comic, because they do address that this is the very same doctor that pulled the kryptonite bullet out of him from Bloodsport in the events of James Gunn's Suicide Squad. So right at the end, bottom, he remembers Superman from taking the kryptonite bullet out. So that was very fascinating. And then, of course, he gives Superman a jar of kryptonite to make sure no one uses it as a weapon. And Superman visits the children's hospital. So that was really cool. Interesting stuff there. So yeah, they have to figure out a way to combat this four-armed creature, which is a very interesting story. And then I also have already covered this Doom Patrol, the Hell Below. So that's very fascinating from DC. But going on to Comic 3, we've got a lot to cover here. This is issue 655 from, let's see if I can get an ad. It has a year on it. Oh, it's back when Brother Bear 2 came out. So let's see. Do we have an ad for a year? Should put ones on the bottom here. Sorry guys, I'm looking for a year real quick. 2006. Okay, so we've got Superman. What is the Secret of Subject 17? Issue 655. It's a very nice cover. Modern day graphics. Starting off, we get to see the luxurious lays of a former Atlantean magic user being introduced in Paris, 1659. Jean Simon Giscard. So yeah, very interesting stuff there. He wakes up to a call of magic, of course. He gets to peer in his crystal ball into the future. Then we start off our story. There's, of course, a few people on the plane buzzing Clark about their news article. So that's fascinating. Clark stands up to the bully and kind of addresses that he doesn't like his article very much, or him in the paper, down talking Superman. There were some news reporters that didn't like Superman that went after him. Then we get to see Lana Lang as the CEO of Luthor Corp, which was really cool to see her, give her something to do. They discussed the layout of the plans of the new building. It's using anti-gravity technology, stuff Luthor's acquired over the years. Even though his scandals and a lot of his investors have left, there's still technology coming out of the industry from him. Then we get a big conversation between Clark and Lana about their relationship and how she's splitting from her former husband. Which is a lot, but we do get to cool sequence of the Luthor Corp building. We get to see the window open, specifically for Clark to fly out of. So that's really cool. They built that into the building. And then he tells Lana if she needs anything, he's just a call away, because he can hear her from anywhere in the world. So that's fun. In some of the comics, Clark ends up getting with Lana Lang, so depending on who's writing. We do get to see a disaster site in, fake country, but very interesting disaster location. We see that after a bombing, a woman's calling out for Clark. And Clark has to sneak out of his plane by using heat vision at the bottom of the plane. So that's very fascinating as well. I'd like to see something like that be used in a movie. A smarter way of Clark getting away, maybe. And then him flying off to save the scientist, which they had previously met. Dr. Lil Wayne. So she was waiting for him to come get her. And of course, he told her there's several people to rescue. It's going to take some time. Going on to the creature he had to fight, of course. Scientists trying to tell him, you need to know what you're up against. And he explained, tell me on the way, as he was fighting. Basically these Mongolians and other people up in the Arctic who came across this container didn't know what it was, what the Soviets were working on after a failed project. And I believe this was hinting at Doomsday, but they just call him Subject 17 in this, which is fascinating. The scientist was trying to either put it down or stop it from getting out, and of course her mission was not successful because the Russian government didn't want to bring in the UN, and the events of this battle actually changed time, so that's why this magician from the 1600s, Paris, is looking in on this, because of course by our modern day, he's already been dead for 400 years, so he's of course having to change the past, change history, which I like his dagger, making a real nice portal, so that's fun. DC, but yeah, definitely check out some of these comics that are coming out, guys. It's just part of my collection stuff, going through Superman after watching the movie. That was really fun. I've got two more to go through real quick. So we've got Reign of the Supermen, Superman, the Man of Steel, plus a bonus Man of Steel poster. So this is issue number 13 from 1993. So really iconic poster, guys. You guys know the story of the Man of Steel. This is after, of course, Superman died during the events of his battle with Doomsday. So we get to see an introduction to the character. Of course, Mr. Johnson, and then we get to see, the setting, the hood getting blasted up with antimatter rays, some new level technology and being introduced, which would be really cool to see DC adapt this comic, because it was a little bit more real, street heavy. So going into that, after the kid was smoked, unfortunately, in the middle of the street, we do see Mr. Jackson go after them and try to stop them. By bending their weapon, he was able to bend their blaster, but they do run him up against a curb, really hurtful stuff. Then of course we see a few weeks later the nurses have gotten him pretty much all patched up, and he's retailing to the boy the story of how a man fell working on the big construction lines and how he had to swing to catch him, save his life, and that when he did so, he fell, and Superman happened to be passing by and saved him. And he swore after that he would dedicate his life to being like Superman. So that's really interesting. They did go into this a bit in the Superman and Lois TV show, so that's really cool. They do go into psychics, talking about Superman's spirit still walking with us after he's dead. So that's really cool. After the thugs return, after Mr. Johnson, he does deploy his new suit, which is just fantastic, I think. And then he does save the spiritual woman from across the way in her store, the card reader. And the Man of Steel, I'll show you right here. This is what he looks like. Really cool artwork. So then we get to see Lois. She's real conflicted about hearing the reports of Clark returning and him not, visiting her right away. Of course, she's messing around with a new reporter called Tobias. Bias. Interesting. I do like to see this part right here with Lex Luthor and his assistant. If you guys see right down here, up here, the assistant looks just like out of the James Gunn Superman movie, which I think is really cool. Lex, of course, doesn't, but the assistant looks iconic, just out of the 80s comic. We do see Mr. Johnson going after the thugs, using his super suit, which they say he's a steel man, so that's kind of the explanation behind the steel suit. And him being just a naturally big guy, big athlete. So that's cool. They do give him a super suit in the Superman and Lois TV show, very much like Iron Man, but I don't mind that. That's still pretty cool for when they don't have a Superman. They've got the Man of Steel. So that's cool. We do get to see a lady assassin that goes by White Rabbit, who knows that Mr. Johnson is the Man of Steel. We get to see her skimpy outfit bit, those plumpness. The mob asks them why she takes out a rat instead of the Man of Steel, and it's because she doesn't like blabbermouths. That's very interesting. And then we end with Lois wondering, there's 4 stories about Clark's return now. The Man of Steel, the Walking Spirits, all these others. And we end with very concerned Jonathan Kent in the hospital, thinking his son's returned. So that's very interesting. And Lex looking into meeting the White Rabbit. So very fascinating stuff here, guys, from Man of Steel, Superman comics. Going into my last one, I do think this may be the James Gunn's take on World's Finest. So we've got the Armageddon 2001 Superman. This is the annual 1991 issue number 3. Batman, Robin, and the Justice League versus the Man of Tomorrow today. It's a very big, nice cover. I love the cape Superman wears in this. Fantastic. Going into this, we do get to see a bit of Superman. They go by many names, of course. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a Man of Steel, Superman. We get to see Superman dropping off convicts, criminals, at supposedly Rikers, or one of these infamous jails. They're all, shouting for their lives, scared that Superman's going to drop them, but of course he catches them and blows wind to stop their fall, slow them down, which is very Christopher Reeves. Then we get to see Intergang being introduced, trying to break the criminals out of jail. And then over here, we get the introduction of a new character who goes by the Wave Rider, which is interesting. He goes through time trying to stop Monarch. So that's very fascinating. Monarch is a new villain in the future that is killing all the heroes off from his timeline, which is very much like Legends of Tomorrow. So very interesting that Wave Rider has to go back in time, try to prevent Monarch from happening. Then we get to see him in modern day Metropolis with Lois waiting for Superman on the Daily Planet. We get to go into their not too distant future. Wave Rider can see timelines. We get to see Clark's wedding, of course the destruction of Metropolis. Now this is a possible future, not a set in stone one, but very interesting. We see after Lois is gone, he ends up getting with Lana, old high school crush, and he dedicates himself to denuclearizing the world. So very interesting. He changes up his costume a bit and starts being a bit more ruthless. We see him taking on the U.S. government with a submarine and basically telling them they are not allowed to continue building their nuclear stockpile. Very fascinating stuff, guys. I would have loved to see this in the Zack Snyder's universe, or even the James Gunn, now that he's building up this new universe. I'm not sure how they'll fit it in or how they'll make it work, but I like that concept because it's something from the cartoon that worked really well, I thought, at least. We see him looking through the ship for survivors and laser blasting it. They do mention later on in the comic that there's so much lead shielding in the ship that there were soldiers that went down the ship Superman didn't see. Very fascinating. The president's briefed on the situation of Superman dismantling weapons, mass destruction. Then of course you see military personnel briefing him on what they've seen. Superman plucked the missiles right off their plane. Very fascinating. Then Superman encounters the U.S. government himself, telling them not to keep pushing. And then we see Gordon and Batman discussing problems in Gotham. So pretty long, lengthy comic. We get the president visiting Batman in Gotham Harbor. So that's pretty cool. And they kind of set it up for it to be Bush as the president, but very meta. But he of course tries to recruit Batman to take out Superman. And at first, Batman's very reluctant. He doesn't believe, Superman would kill without reason or without just cause after losing Lois and his unborn child in Metropolis, the whole city, Metropolis. We see him. My timer. Okay. Sorry for that. Going into his home life, we see him taking care of his mother and Lana. Very conspiratorial about the outside world. Worried about people showing up. Of course, we see Bruce show up to ask him about the current situation. And I do like to see Clark wearing sweaters. I think that's kind of funny. Back to him in the good old days. Then we see his confrontation with Bruce gets to a point where he feels he needs to suit up again and go out and face whatever challenges U.S. government has set for him. It's very interesting that he's, become stubborn and hard to work with this time. They do send, after he goes through his maze of tunnels, the Justice League is called on him, which is Starfire, Booster Gold, and Martian Manhunter at the time. So very eclectic, interesting group. Booster Gold boasting about him, and then of course Superman saying this is a weird, endeavor, him taking on friends, allies. But of course they do begin to battle it out, and they do discuss, Booster Gold, Starfire don't have much to offer, but wrestling with Martian Manhunter would delay Superman from doing his mission, so he'd much rather not. And you see he makes quick work of Booster Gold, Starfire, but then of course he pushes it too far with John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, and he ends up leaving him in Starfire's flames, which of course, if you guys know, John Jones has a fear of fire from his planet blowing up, Mars. So very interesting. He takes out a ship from the U.S. government, and then when he returns, they discuss that John's dead, and of course Superman feels conflicted, but it's not his fault. He discusses that they need to go. This place is no longer safe for them. We get to see him fly off the car, which is kind of funny. And then Wayne Manor, we get to see the Batcave with Robin, which is nice, before him turning into Nightwing. And then I thought this was very interesting, them staying under the ice of Antarctica in the fortress with Ma Kent and Lana, because Kent was super paranoid that the U.S. was going to take him out. But interesting to see. Batman calls for him. He signals him to come meet him in the alley where his parents died. So really gritty metal. Batman wearing a suit. And of course we see he pulls out the ring that Clark gave him, the kryptonite ring, in case he ever went too dark. Batman would use it on him. Now is the time. They do have a fight and struggle battle. I do love the mechanized bat suit that Batman wears to fight Superman. It was shown off in BVS, the Snyder film, with Ben Affleck. So that was cool. And then we get to see the last image is, Clark begging for his life. Unfortunately, he's taken out by Batman, which is how it should be, if you think about it. And of course, Wave Rider had to leave because there he found out that Superman will not, in fact, become Monarch. Someone else is Monarch. So he has to reveal his identity. But this is a really cool Armageddon 2001 Superman comic with both of them in it. Really good. Issue number 3 from 1991. It's really cool. Highly recommend you guys check these out. I'll check out those. But be sure to like the video, comment down below what you thought of all the movie news coverage, all kinds of things, comic news, other things you guys like. Follow me on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, @SceneScreenGuru. But until next time, guys, I'm going to say ciao. Have a good one. Alrighty. Bye-bye.